Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is chrism, and I would like to invite you to a conversation about the Kundalini Awakening experience. And my name is chrism, and welcome to this conversation. Right off the bat, let's go ahead and get going into it. Kundalini brings certain skills, as we've spoken about in past programs. But what it doesn't bring are specific skills that are designed to manipulate others. You don't get to have a skill set that is going to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. You're not going to get to have a skill set that's going to in any way build self-aggrandizement within the person that has the Kundalini. More often than not, you're going to get skills that improve communication, that improve compassion, that improve levels of forgiveness, that improve levels of surrender, and the inner conversation with the Kundalini, as it expresses through the person. Telepathy is a very common skill set that is given for people that have the Kundalini in the expressive state. And so I just want you to know that within the understanding of very special skill sets, you don't get to hurt others with them. Now, if you're pushing people like I do, I push people I challenge their ego, and so I challenge their self-complacency within their ego. Huge echo on my voice. Oh. Huge echo. I wonder, is it for everyone? Does everyone hear that?
Not for me here.
Let's see. Mary Jean doesn't hear it. Hear it. Atlanta Seeker doesn't hear it. Hear it. No. Oh, thank God. But thank you, Cole. Thank you, Cole, for letting me know. I'm very appreciative of it. And thank you, everybody else, for answering that question. You guys are my sound check, and I am so appreciative. I could just sit here, close my eyes, stream the Kundalini consciousness, and there it would be echoing, everywhere. So once again, thank you, Mary Jean and Phil and Vincent and Cole and Atlanta Seeker. Thank you very much. So as I challenge people's Kundalini complacency, the comfort that they have with their ego, the comfort that they have with the status quo in their lives, this can cause a certain level of anxiety in people. People don't like to be confronted with issues that they need to resolve for the sake of the purification of the container that is becoming an exalted container, a holy grail, so to speak. When we're at the beginning stages or even somewhere in the middle of the stages, we don't like having some teacher come along and say, "Oh, hey, you're going to have to forgive that," or "Oh, hey, you're going to have to establish a form of energetic hygiene so that you can keep yourself from getting infected by this kind of an entity or that kind of an entity." They don't even like to hear the word entity. So it's very important that you realize that within the teaching of the Kundalini, or the teaching of purification for the impending holy grail that the person is, that each one of you, Atlanta Seeker, Guest 1447, Mary Jean, Phil Karuba, Vincent, and Cole are, as well as Eileen and Rosemary and Santara. As this impending holy grail is being purified, it's not always going to be an easy thing. Certain levels of past, certainly karmic level of experience will be brought up for purification. Certain levels of contemporary behavioral modification will be brought up as a way to begin to reestablish a stronger communication with the inner divine. You can't really establish strong levels of inner divine communication having a rampant ego going up and down the spectrum of your soul and expecting to allow its wants and desires and needs to be held as a permanent focus and location for attempting to communicate with the Kundalini. The Kundalini is going to ask you, and in many cases force you, or to give you a teacher that will force you to bring a strong level of discipline upon that ego consciousness. So you just need to know this. Now, with the various skill sets will come various levels of interactivity that, certainly from a teaching standpoint, will include the ability to help a person into looking at their dreams, for instance, or a vision that they may have, or looking at their ego and the reactions of the ego into normal society within a Kundalini context. So, for instance, as you're standing in line at a restaurant, and you can eat a poverty-stricken senior citizen comes in line, a few people behind you, and what is your response to that? It's like, oh gosh, he doesn't look like he has much money. Oh well, and you go on with your day. Or you check your own finances and see, well, could I actually afford to buy that senior citizen his lunch or her lunch right now, and ask that clerk not to mention who it was, just let them say it's their lucky day today. Okay, and so we'll be pushing you into levels of response within a societal milieu that allows you to actually begin to infuse Kundalini into your expressive life, into the way you behave around the general public in the country, the society that you live in. Very, very important for you to understand that. So certain skill sets will be allowed to have that occur, to give that into you. And sometimes if I'm teaching with you one-on-one, specific dreams will be given. It won't be given through chrism Kundalini. It'll be given through the Kundalini that's in chrism. And if chrism appears to you in a dream, it isn't the physical chrism consciousness that is appearing to you in the dream. It is the Kundalini consciousness appearing to you as chrism in the dream. Just the same way that a serpent or a tiger or a wolf or a spider or a bear or any of the praying mantis, a wasp, a bee, any of the Kundalini creatures that come in to the dream life, that will be from the Kundalini. Well, so will chrism, the teacher, come to you by virtue of the Kundalini into your dream life. Very important for you to understand that. So certain skill sets are given, but most of these skill sets are used by the Kundalini for the purification of the container or the impending holy grail that the person is becoming. It doesn't that sounds very smooth and very glib, and oh my gosh, he's just like, streaming the consciousness now, and oh my gosh, put your seatbelts on, because it's not always that easy. You get a lot of resistance. You'll have entities inside of a body, and even the teacher may not even see it. You'll have entities inside of a body that are causing the person to go into total resistance when it comes to Kundalini awakening behavioral modifications. And they will actually be chewing away at certain energetic structures or chakras within the body that would allow a person to slip away from their practice, that would allow a person to fall into deep depression, that would allow a person to fall into a dietary maelstrom, such as drinking alcohol and doing anything that they can do to damage their energetic systems. And so it's not an easy thing to come along and say, oh, Mr. chrism, I think that we're going to have to adjust your lifestyle this way, and I want to see it, and I want you to demonstrate it for me right now. This is typically how I teach. I want to see it right now. I want you to show me right now how you're going to make that behavioral modification. Then I'm going to ask you to do it again, and again, and again, and again, sometimes up to 9 times or more, so that you build a level of reference point for how you're making that behavioral modification change to support your Kundalini awakening equation. So it's very important. And I teach from a whole plethora of modalities, everything from direct energetic exchange, everything from that to tantra, wet, dry, and energetic tantra, to Shaktipat, to just didactic, standing up front of the room and giving you the words, to my gaze, having the Kundalini travel along the gaze. I mean, these are all activation modalities that the Kundalini has chosen to express through me. And so it's very important that people understand that even though they may be getting information from a psychic-like source, all of this is in the control of the Kundalini. None of it is really in control of me at all. I mean, I have to show up. I have to do that Skype call. I have to come to that seminar. I have to fly to your country. I have to do that speaking engagement. I have to go and pay the money and hop the jet. But the Kundalini is really the real workhorse with this. The Kundalini in me and the Kundalini in the individual will come together and begin a process of really, really, really strong teachings for an individual that's on a fast path. Now, everybody isn't on a fast path. Some people are on a very rapid path. Some people are on a very gradual path. And that is really in line with the karma that the person is experiencing. So, you don't want to make any judgments or competitions about whether you're on a fast path or a slow path. The most important thing is that you're on the path at all. That's the most important thing. Now, because of my varied teaching styles, and because that I don't limit, I don't put holds. I don't say, oh, Kundalini, don't teach Rosemary this way, or oh, Kundalini, don't teach Phil Karuba this way, or Mary Jean this way, or Lana Seeker, or Vincent or Cole. Don't teach them this way because, oh my gosh, it might be a little too hard. Or, oh my gosh, maybe they just, they're just having a hard time right now, and they just don't need that kind of pressure. I never say that to the Kundalini. Matter of fact, what I do with the Kundalini is I surrender to it. Same thing I ask you to do. Divinity knows us far better than we know ourselves, and Divinity knows where Mary Jean might be in her Kundalini awakening equation, or Rosemary, or Eileen. She knows the individual, and she knows what that individual needs, and so she will give that individual the exact thing that they need at that exact time, at that exact moment. But still, the Kundalini has a broad palette of choices to take in how she teaches through me. And it's not all happiness. It's not all happy, joy. Matter of fact, I'm going to read you something right now that I posted on the main Facebook page, Kundalini Awakening ! And forgive me for those of you that have already read this, have already. I am accused of having a cult. That I'm a cult leader, CULT, cult. And it kind of makes me smile because I'm sitting in this easy chair and I'm looking over to my right, and I see my folded laundry there on the couch that I have to put away in the bedroom, and I'm looking at the floor that I just vacuumed, and I'm looking at these things that I would have to do. That if I were really a successful cult leader, I would have some of the cult members be doing that, right? If I was like Jim Jones or something like that. I don't even have Kool-Aid in the house. And of course, if I did have Kool-Aid, it would be free-range, breastfed, organic Kool-Aid. But I don't have that, and I don't drink Kool-Aid, and I'm not really a death person. I don't teach people to kill the ego or kill themselves or kill animals. I'm very much a pro-life type of person within the concept of Kundalini and Ahimsa, which means do no harm, do not kill. So these people that accuse me of being a cult person, I think they're just kind of grasping at a straw that is an easy straw for them to grasp at. So I'm going to go ahead and read this piece to you. It says, I am a cult of one. I am a teacher of one. I give and have given from every aspect of my being, all 5 bodies of expression, into the teachings of the awakened Kundalini. And as I have mentioned before, the Kundalini itself will cross over all boundaries of societal acceptance and expectation. So I have crossed these boundaries and traditions and taboos and acceptance within the Western societies. I am guilty of this. And though it gives me no joy to disturb anyone's status quo, it is what it is. Therefore, in the eyes of some humanity, I am a bad guru, an abuser, a wicked, womanizing culprit of dark intention, a cult leader of the worst kind, a savior, a madman. And I'm just going to check back here. People in the chat room, can you tell me if you're hearing me okay as I read this? I'm just a little cautious about changing channels while I'm broadcasting at the same time here with the mic. So if you can write that you're hearing me okay, that you just heard me read those first 2 paragraphs, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody? Nobody's writing, and so I have a feeling I'm not even here. Let's see. Eileen, can you hear me?
Yes, your voice is wonderful.
Did you hear me read those things?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, very good, very good. So I can feel confident that I'm not disconnecting from Blog Talk. All right. So yes, I am a cult leader of the worst kind, a savior, a madman. Of all of the goodness or hurtfulness that is done by me as I teach, it will only be assumed, or it will only be the assumed hurtful qualities that are remembered. And I knew from the beginning that this was a possibility. So to explain that a little bit, it is only people don't remember the goodness so much. It's almost like that is expected. There's an expectation of goodness to be given by a teacher, and I agree with that. But they will remember the hurtful qualities, whether they're real or fantasy. They remember the hurtfulness that is done, and it will be the assumed hurtful qualities that are remembered. I knew from the beginning that this was a possibility, that the Kundalini in me would not necessarily conform to the levels of Victorian standards of conduct, that any gift of mind, of body, of blood, of voice, of divine emanation would be pilloried and condemned, would be forced into the judgment and accusations and domination of the unawakened people, or those who are struggling with their ego, and by those who want and may now have the Kundalini, but cannot keep it or manage it due to the excess of their little I, the inner child, the ego, and its affiliates, those corrupting entities. Yet I engaged and continue to engage in any and all ways and means in passing the Kundalini grace into people. And I do this because it's so important to have this Kundalini grace in this world right now. And I get chewed out a lot by people. So it's like, well, how can you awaken the Kundalini in them if you're not sure that they're, practicing your safety protocols, or if you're not sure that they're ready for it, and what happens when they blow out? Well, when they blow out is typically by stopping the safety protocols. I've got people right now in Minnesota that have blown out, because they got so much energy from me. They were doing 6, 7, 8 hours of practice a day of devotion, doing the safeties, receiving strong levels of Kundalini connection, and then boom, they just decide to stop. They decide to go to another type of teacher or another, community or whatever it is. They stop with the Kundalini awakening safeties, and they begin to become corrupted. And through that corruption, those entities point the finger straight at me and say, "Oh, look what he did. That terrible, terrible cult teacher. Look what he did." Oh my gosh. And and so I've got a few people now that are 5 people that I have given a lot of Kundalini to are complaining. They're complaining. And so I just have to continue with this. But you must practice those safeties daily. If you expect to be given to by me or to taught by me, even as you're listening to this conversation, you need to be practicing those safeties, because this voice is a vector of activation within the Kundalini. And so I continue. By the written word, I have done these things. By the spoken word, the visual presence, the energetic presence, the total submersion into the grace of the Kundalini, regardless of ego or of doubt or of self-preservation within society. I have given activation by pain, by pleasure, by the expression of the emotional body, by the expression of the intellectual body, and the expression of the physical body. Physical body expression. I have given Kundalini energy and activation and consciousness through the psychological body and the spiritual body. And by strict spiritual discipline, by strict ego management, I have given and give and have been given to by the Kundalini for about 10 years now. And Kundalini knows what I do and fosters that doing. Or I wouldn't be able to do it. You just take that away from me. And by virtue of that, I am enjoyed by some and really severely hated by others. I receive the gifts of grace from the Kundalini and the gifts of the people. And I receive the death threats and the threats of violent dismemberment. I have people wanting to cut me and hurt me and shoot me and kill me. And at the same time, I receive the compliments and the scorn, a full spectrum of opinion and judgment upon who I am and what I do with regards to teaching the Kundalini, and yet I continue, and I will continue. It is you, the individual, that is the final arbiter on what works or does not work for you, i.e., that means you are the person who is in total control of what works or does not work for you. You can change the channel, you can leave the group, you can not have a Skype, you can not see, go to a seminar. You don't have to do anything. If Kundalini is forcing you to do this, well, then it wants you to do this, and it wants you to receive what the information from this individual is giving you, or it wouldn't be pushing you there. And if Kundalini teaches anything, it teaches that even through a teacher of the Kundalini, the major importance of self-discipline and of self-assurance and of self-responsibility and self-validation and self-management of our thoughts and actions is the individual responsibility. That means your responsibility. You got to do the work. You've got to walk the talk. If you don't do the work or you don't walk the talk, you're going to get in trouble. And it's not going to be trouble by me. It'll be trouble by entities. It'll be trouble by those that are wishing to control you, to corrupt your system, to corrupt that holy grail that you're becoming. And I know that sounds like such an easy out. Oh, chrism. So that just means you can do anything you want with people and then just blame it all on the entities. No, I can't. But there is a lot of activity from the entities that will control the way you think, and by virtue of controlling the way you think, i.e. mind control, they can also control the way you feel. And by controlling the way you think and feel, they can control the way you exhibit activities or behaviors on this world. I just cleared entities off of a person, and they do a 180-degree shift when those entities are cleared, even temporarily. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, but it is important for you, the individual, to claim and hold and validate your responsibility within this. It's not just like, oh, you surrender to chrism and I don't do anything now. Okay, I'm done. I'm just a little, instead of being a puppet for an entity, I'm now a puppet for a teacher. Okay, fine. That is not it. That is not the responsible course. The responsible course is to look at your self-discipline. How are you practicing the safeties? How are you disciplining your thoughts? How are you disciplining your actions? And it's for you to look at your self-assurance. It's how do you feel about yourself? Are you feeling positive about what you're doing? Are you feeling positive about these changes in behavior that the Kundalini is lending to you, helping you into? Are you feeling positive about your self-responsibility and the responsibility of higher vectors of energetic response to this world? And are you self-validating for that higher vector, for even being able to hold a level of energy that can create a validation upon this physical world? And are you self-managing your thoughts and your actions on a continual basis? Are you self-managing those thoughts and actions? And are you claiming individual responsibility? Nobody's tying your hands. Nobody's forcing you to take a ride with chrism all through Arizona, all through Southern California. Nobody's forcing you to make hard choices and really strong internal reviews. Nobody's forcing you to go to Mount Shasta. Nobody's forcing you to go to Yosemite. Nobody's forcing you to go to the Grand Canyon with chrism so that you can get the Shakti pot that people get when they ride with me in the car. Nobody's forcing you to do that. Nobody's forcing you to do any of the practices that you will do with chrism if you, for whatever reason the Kundalini brings any specific practice up. Where is your individual responsibility? And I tell you what, we don't like to read that. Oh, no. No, we don't like to read that or to know that so much in the West. You know, these Western societies are those that are changing behaviors in that direction, like Brazil or India. And yet, even so, even though we don't want to face our individual responsibility, it is a truth that we must do so, even so. Even so. Just because you don't want to face it doesn't mean it's not necessary to face. It's very important to face this. And yes, the entities may not want you to face it either. That's the last thing they want, is for you to start changing your behaviors in the direction of truth. The last thing they want is for you to start taking self-responsibility. They want to control you away from those things. That whole idea of having an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other, that is not far from the truth. That is not far from the truth. And the Kundalini is that angel. It's just one of those angels that will look at that devil on your other shoulder and go into what that devil's doing and what you've allowed it to do throughout your whole life and into past lives. Reincarnation is real. We don't like to look into those areas. We don't like to have to dig out the sewage, the gutter of our responsibilities and our self-management, or lack thereof, of our self-invalidation. We don't like to have to dig that up. We don't want to dig that up. We don't want to look at the bad choices we've made in life because it hurts. And our ego doesn't like to hurt. The entities enjoy that hurt, and so they're going to push you towards that hurt, but not to mediate it or remediate it in any way. It's just to really make you hurt more, to have you feel more guilty. It is a very, very, very crowded multiverse that we live amongst. It's just that we're only allowed to see 5 senses of it. 5 cents out of a million. It is said that there is no one to tell chrism, me, to stop. That even though he's doing all these teachings and all these different modalities, and the Kundalini's telling him to do this with one person and to do that with another person, and to step over that taboo, to cross that line of appropriateness, even though it's telling him to do all these things, there's no one to tell me to stop. stop, chrism. But I'm going to tell you there is. There is something that will tell me to stop, and that's the Kundalini itself. It tells me to stop very, very, very effectively. And it tells me in very, very clear understandings what to do or not to do. And the problem with those that say that there is no one to tell me to stop, the problem with them is they don't get to feel the direction from the Kundalini. They don't get to see it in action. They don't get to be a part of that change. And this disturbs them because they cannot partake of that correction. They want to they want to see it done. Like, oh, okay, there's that Christian guy. I told him what to do. Look, his Kundalini's doing it. And their ego needs that sense of validation that they have course-corrected chrism in some way, that they have now controlled chrism or punished him in such a way that he must now do things that they want or desire him to do in the way that they wish it to be. Well, they don't get to have that satisfaction. They don't get to have that completion that their ego is looking for. Because really, if you look at it, even without the Kundalini, if there is no one for me to teach, no one for me to drive to the Grand Canyon or Sedona or New Mexico or across the country or, Yosemite or Mount Shasta or any of those things, even if there's no one there to read what I write or to hear the words I speak, if nobody has an interest, then there is no harm done. We must choose the courses that we must take. We must choose to discern what we want to do, where we want to do, who we want to do it with, and why we want to do that. Many of us, we want to attain and be known for greatness. And some of others we want to be seen as suffering, as a way of gaining the validation of sympathy, drowning in the victimhood mentality of the ever-present victim, always taken advantage of and never being able to, it's like Charlie Brown, what did you get for Halloween, Charlie Brown? I got a rock. We want to be seen as suffering and gaining that sympathy from others. Oh, did that mean wretched teacher chrism do that to you? Oh. Some of us want to have an edge on others. We want to be able to use the Kundalini in such a way that we can make that sales deal go through. We can sell that car. We can sell that real estate. We can jump over all the other people ahead of us in line for promotion, or we can win at the casino, or we can in some way we want to have that edge over other people so that we don't have to compete from a level playing field. And really, what care we cannot provide for ourselves, we search for in others through the actions and positions of being helplessly taken advantage of, or receiving and learning what is being offered. Receiving and learning what is being offered. Oh my gosh, what a big step that is. Offered by a person like me. We make our own choices here, folks. And it goes right back to personal responsibility and the management of personal responsibility and the management of your choices and the management of your life and the management of where you bring yourself and who you bring yourself to in this life. There are other Kundalini people out there. You don't need to teach. You don't learn from chrism. Granted, I don't know that anybody teaches what I teach or these aspects of the Kundalini that I teach, but still, You can go out and learn Kundalini yoga. You can go to other places and hop on the 50-year plan or the 20-year plan. You can read a book. You don't have to learn from chrism. And it doesn't really matter that I give freely to all. That doesn't seem to matter to people. It doesn't matter that people get to choose and command in what way they would like to learn or receive the grace of the Kundalini. What matters to many, not all, but to many, is the want of ego aspirations of self-absorption, i.e., they want more of an opportunity for self-absorption within the ego, of ego validation, ego control. They don't want to have to make any of the hard changes. These are not typically people that I will take on as private students, but this is kind of maybe a snapshot of some of the people that want to come into this. They've kind of bought into the whole idea of all they have to do is change their mind a little bit and they can get anything they want. Forget about ego work. Forget about behavioral modification. You just got to switch your mind sense a little bit. You can get anything you want, and that includes enlightenment from the Kundalini. Well, I got news for you folks. It doesn't work that way. You definitely have to change your brain, but you don't change it towards getting anything you want. You change it towards doing what the Kundalini wants you to do. That's what you change it for. You change it towards being able to separate the ego from the entity. What is my ego and what is my entity? Typically, if it's your ego, there's going to be some sort of self-aggrandizement or self-centered interest in any given action, thought, deed, or emotion. With the entity, it's going to be typically one of corruption. Now, sometimes they will just lie. They'll say, "Oh no, we're of the light." And it's and for the beginner person, they may go, "Oh, it's from the light. Oh, how nice. Well, of course I will do that." But no. Eventually, they will show their true self, and they will show you that they're basically there to corrupt, to hurt people through you, but to hurt you first. Okay. And so that's another part of the self-responsibility is learning to discern the ego from the entity control. And I do not typically allow people that are refusing ego control or the initiation of ego control to become a private student. Being a private student, being someone that I Skype with all the time or I drive with in the car, these types of things. These are sacred agreements are made. Sacred agreements between you and the Kundalini, between you and divinity, between you and your teacher, between you and your Kundalini. These sacred agreements count. They are heard and they are made. And when they are broken, serious results can be experienced. And I'm not going to tell you what those results will be, but they're not gentle. And these sacred agreements, they are typically broken by the ego that is typically being influenced by entities. That's why ego management and self-correction they can be very, very difficult. They're not easy at all, but they're very, very strong pathways up the Kundalini mountain. And so it is, as a rule, it seems, that those who are assisted won't say anything. They just take the assistance and they're silent and they don't, nobody hears that, oh, this went well. And those who are not assisted in the way they wish, i.e. the ego way, they will complain loudly. And so it is with the teachings that I give and have given, and in the way they are given. I have many, many detractors, and they are very loud. So I write this, and I'm speaking this into this microphone as a warning to all of you to know and to feel and to think about as you read or participate in anything that I do or give or offer or suggest. I am a tainted teacher to many people, a gross abuser, a bad guru. or a very helpful one and a lifesaver and a point of grace to others? You are going to have to decide this. You decide. Develop or have the strength of character and integrity to make up your own mind and find it in your own internal integrity, how you feel about what I do, why I do, or who I am, before you take anything that I say or do as a benefit or a loss. Okay? Oh, and I see somebody posted here on the chat group here. It looks like it's Cole. Oh, here we go. Vincent. Yes. The entities can also fill you with emotions that are not yours. Here's the thing. The entity can read your emotional body. They can see what your trigger points are. Okay, and so Vincent says, I'll get something pushed into my head. And no, this is not a hot knife. You know, you'd get for too much practice, I suppose, not quite getting that, but okay. And Cole says, I have that too, Vincent. It's a fear test given through an entity. Don't give the thought any energy. Just ignore it. Good for you. Good for you, Cole. The entity makes you think it's going to happen, and you just need to ignore it and trust your Kundalini. Absolutely. Cole is speaking clearly here. Very clearly. Thank you, Cole. And, sorry, Atlantis Seeker. I start rocking when I do the consciousness streaming. Sorry. I'll stop. I promise I'll stop right now. I'm stopping. This is my behavioral modification right now. So I've written this. And there's another thing that I feel is important for people to hear. And it's another thing. It's called a very strong practice. This is a real big deal too, because how we do our practice can, in many ways, it can influence how we interrelate with the Kundalini, how we interrelate with others, and certainly how we interrelate with entities. And so if you have a very strong practice, meaning that, let's just say that you can meditate for hours or give devotion for hours at a time, and you're going very well with this, and you're getting good phenomena, in your waking life, in your sleeping life, your spiritual life, it is essential that you keep up the integrity of that practice. As this practice is given and sustained, a form of an energetic barrier can be developed against unwanted intrusion into you, the individual, by an entity. These are evil demonic types of intrusion, the type that enjoys corrupting a person as they attempt to move into greater and greater levels of grace. And so the closer that you get to the bigger and larger levels of grace, the closer you get to that, the bigger and larger the attempt to thwart you becomes. The first place they may attack you is in the agreements that you've made with the divine, or the agreements that you've made with your teacher. That gift of yourself to God, or what God has given to be with you and for you, is trashed in a most insidious way. And it can move slowly, making you think its thoughts are yours, until that is exactly how it is. And I think Cole and Vincent were just talking about this. It doesn't matter how long you've been practicing or what teacher you have or how independent you are. So do your best to stick to the practice. If it is the safeties practice for Kundalini, then stick to those and do not let up. Let it be as a new daily life habit for you, all of it. The meditations, the devotions, the emotional balances, the mudras, the locks, the tongue up, the understandings of love and patience and honesty and truth and tolerance and gratitude. Do all of the safeties. Because the very second that you let up on that practice or miss a day or two, the cracks in that barrier will widen and allow corrupting consciousness to enter into you. And this is allowed by the Kundalini simply because she wants you to learn how to maintain your grace, how to self-manage your grace through the self-management of your practice. And the entrance of entities can mark a great fall from grace of the individual as this corruption begins to control the thought processes of the person, which has happened for some of these people in Minnesota. It also begins to control the emotional expressions and the angers and the fears and the old jealousies of the persons in their pre-Kundalini life. It's a long and arduous climb back to where the fall took place. So please, if you have a strong practice and you have made strong commitments to God, to the divine within you, keep it going. Keep it going and let it bring you into your enlightenment, into your fields of heavenly joy. Don't stop doing it now. And let's see, Vincent is saying, can you maybe talk about the Necronomicon? No. What? Oh, no wonder. Jeez Louise. No, I'm not going to talk. I'm not even going to mention that. Why are you doing that? Vincent, why are you going into these heavily satanic, demonic areas? What could possibly interest you there? No, he wants me to talk about some like a demonic Bible, and I'm just not going to do it. That's silly. You should be taking those things out. And if you have any kind of curiosity about that, you just eliminate that curiosity. And that will eliminate the entity with a large stick ripping through your energetic body. My word, Vincent. I mean, are you like going to horror movies? Yeah, you need to really maybe oh, sorry, I was rocking again, Atlanta Seeker, my bad. You need to really begin to control and manage what you're doing, what you're thinking, why you're thinking what you're thinking. And you just turn any kind of interest or level of focus away from that book and away from that demon with a stick. And you just don't give it any attention at all. And ask your Kundalini to balance out your energetic anatomy, and she will. But you got to hold up your end of the deal, Vincent. You've got to hold up your end of the deal. This is a good test for you. Now, if you've been reading into any of that stuff, or getting into Enochian magic, or any of that other, I won't say the word that I want to say, any of that other stuff. Well, then that's what crawls on those manuscripts. When you pick up a book like that, it's literally crawling with entities. It's like you're picking up a book with worms all over the cover, and as you pick up the book, those worms are diving right in. Diving right in. Okay? And Vincent's saying, not at all, not at all. Okay, I believe you. But if you're having a problem with that, something must have occurred either this time or at another time where you have attracted that type of an entity, or you wouldn't even know the name of the book. So steer clear of that. Steer clear of that. Ignore it. Let it go away. Do life supporting, love-based activities in your life. Do everything you can do, Vincent, to be a helpful, kind, service-oriented, loving, healing individual. I don't think I mentioned that book. Maybe I did. Maybe I said don't read it. Well, that's enough. If you've Googled it and you've looked at its name and at its picture, that's all you need to see. You just need to really don't look it up. If I say don't read something, that's not an invitation to Google it and look at the pictures. That means you don't even Google it. Okay, let me repeat that. If I say don't read a book, that is not an invitation for you to slap that book in that Google search window and press that send button and then just look at the picture of the cover. Not you who has Kundalini. People with Kundalini, you know, they're recognizable by entities. You got like a big red flag above your head going, Kundalini active, open for possible corruption, you know, by Google or by books or by whatever. So don't do that. Any of you who are listening to this right now, do not do that thing. Okay? If I say don't read it, that means you don't look at it at all. At all. Because what just happened to Vincent, you know, he's got some entity with a stick trying to rip its way through his energetic anatomy because he just merely Googled it and started looking at the book cover. And, of course, he's put it on the chat room, so everybody there now has to see that name, and, you know, they're going to be fighting it too, to some degree. Okay. I'm not just telling you to do things just because I need to fill in time on the radio show or on a post. Okay. I'm not telling you not to do these things because it's just, you know, a fluff that needs, you know, that I'm wasting time with. It's a truth. And I have gone there and have experienced these things. And I don't need you to go there unless you need to go there. Some of you are going to need to go there. Like those people in Minnesota right now, the 5 people, only two or three of which are in Minnesota, one Michigan and one in a few in one in England and British Columbia. They may have to go to hell for a while. And some of us do. Some of us have to take the trip down into that area and stay there for a time. I had to stay there for 2 years. That is a long time. 2 seconds in a hell realm is a long, long time. 2 years is an eternity. An eternity. But sometimes people have to go. They have to go because the hell realm will burn your ego to a crisp. All right, and I'm going to invite Her Holiness, Her Highnessness, the Celtic Queen of Questionable Comforts, Her Holiness, Santara Kundalini. Here she is, everybody. Hello.
Hi, chrism. Hello, everybody.
Wow, your sound is funky. Are you still watching that movie?
Yeah.
I thought so.
No. Am I heard okay? Can you hear me okay?
Well, I think they can make out your words. I'll let the chat group people make that judgment. I can hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, then, I'll give people the information if you'd like to make a donation. You can go to www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com. And there is another one you can go to as well, which is chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And you will see a donate button on either of those two blog spots. And donations are gratefully received. And as I say every week, you know, there's no pressure on anybody to donate. But if you're in a position to do so and you would like to do so, then it would be gratefully received. I'll give you that other address again, just to make sure I read it out correctly. It's www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com. That's it, chrism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, my dear. Yeah. It's really important that you manage your thoughts and your emotions and your activities. If somebody you're listening to as a teacher tells you not to do some sort of a thing, don't think that you can just do it a little bit and get away. Kundalini is a very, very powerful frequency of divine consciousness, and it can see what you're doing. And if it led you to me, and I told you not to see a certain thing or go to a certain thing, you don't put it in the Google search window. Okay, you don't go part way there at all. Don't go there at all. Okay, and it's also very very important for you to trust what the Kundalini has brought you to. If the Kundalini has brought you to a teacher like me that does all of this type of weird stuff, everything from astral projection to blessing water, to giving Shaktipat, to driving you to sacred sites all over the western United States, to intensive one-on-one work, you need to really trust that source. The Kundalini does not make mistakes, ever. Divinity does not make mistakes. It's already divine. It does not have to go through the refinement process in order to become divine. It's already divine. It is there. It doesn't make mistakes. And it knows you better than you know yourself, as I've said so many times. So trust that source. Why would you trust anything else, is my question to you. Why would you trust anything else that doesn't have the ego management in mind? Why would you trust somebody that's not giving you ego challenges? Why would you trust them? What good would that do you? It's just like, and let's see, I'm just going to use, I'll use Rosemary. Thank you, Rosemary, for letting me use you this way. It's like, oh, Rosemary, okay. Well, it's very nice to see you today, and I just want to compliment you on the way your hair is coiffed and brushed and combed, and the nice clothing that you're wearing, and I just want you to really enjoy that clothing and really begin to run your ego through that clothing and let your vanity just explode upon the universe. Just let it be there forever, and base your self-worth in how you dress, because we want to be all that we can be, and because we want to be what we can be, the way we dress is the most important thing. And of course this is not what I would teach, but this is in no way challenging a person's ego. This is going along with an ego thing. Let me bring Rosemary on here so she may have something to say about that. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi. That could have been true a few years ago, what you're saying. It's not true now.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right? You understand?
Yeah, I do. Fine.
How can we not be challenged in our ego as we're learning about Kundalini? I mean, why would that be avoided? And what good would that avoidance be?
Well, if it was avoided, you just keep up your own old life. Just whatever you have, that's what you're going to get. And right. I think if we're drawn to this, it's because, and I look at my own life, I've been looking for this all my adult life. I can look at the path, and so I certainly want to keep growing and moving and opening and lessening the ego. And I remember being at the ashram this past year, and it was different than the first year. The first year, the things that I worked on were just things that I was aware of, and I knew they didn't work. But the next level is stuff that is really your identity, and you don't even know it's there. It's like you can't see your face, and it's like that deep inside. That was quite enlightening. Still is.
Yeah. And I must say, Rosemary, you're doing great. You're doing the work. You're really sticking to it. You're one of the people that one of the strongest disciplinarians, self-management disciplinarians that I have seen. And so I just really want to send a congratulations to you for doing the practice. And I give you a hard practice. It is not an easy practice, and I give you a very difficult practice, and you're able to go through with it every single day. Nicely done.
Thank you. Well, I'm not sure I get it fully every day, but I'm blessed, and I'm very blessed and grateful. Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you, my dear. Thank you. And I'm going to put you in the blue right here. No, thank you for responding. So yeah, it's so important to allow yourself to be challenged by a teacher in the areas of ego, in the areas of what you like and what you don't like, in the areas of control, what you allow to happen, what you don't allow to happen, and how much do you surrender to the Kundalini? How much do you surrender to the teacher the Kundalini sent you to? What part of the life is not given into this equation? Seriously, folks. What part of your life, what part of your mind, your emotion, your spirituality, your psychology, what part of your physical body is not given into this? What part of you are you keeping from your inner divine? What part of it? What part of your inner body, or your mentality, or your five senses? What part does that not to get to have control over? And why? Okay. And if you have an answer to that question, I am going to invite you to call into the show. And the number is area code, that's a New York area code, 347-934-0026. That's 347-934-0026. And let me tell you, the people that are studying with me, right now, these people know they are on the tip of the spear, like Rosemary, the tip of the spear. When it comes to what I'm talking about right here, they know what it's like. They know that when you're taken away from your familiar position of understanding and how you respond to life, how you respond to other people in your life, how you respond to specific situations in your life, and now it's changed. They know how it seems like you're spinning in a void of uncertainty. And then when you have entities hop onto you while you're spinning in that void of eternity, of infinity or uncertainty, as they start, and then they start to eat away at your energetic anatomy, it can be very, very difficult. It can be very, very strong, and it can actually affect the way you receive your teaching. And as with everybody comes to me with a different type of scenario. And so, I learn, how that person is, how that student is, and, what they're capable of and what they're not capable of. And even, she'll show me some things about that person, but she won't show me everything. I have to actually pay attention and do what I'm told as well. So, for instance, if I'm, if a person's having a problem receiving a teaching, and in a very offhand thought, it's like, you get these little throwaway thoughts like, oh, I wonder if I left my keys in my car. You just kind of keep going with your day. It's just like, gosh, I wonder if I... And then all of a sudden you go, where are my keys? And they are indeed in your car, and you've locked that door. Yay. Or I left my keys at a store, or I left my keys, somewhere. For me, it'll be just a passing thought, a very passing thought in the middle of a conversation. It's just like, oh, you should check for entities and see if you can get rid of those. Which is giving me permission, by the way, to get rid of them at the same time. And wow, I've got to really, really be astute and pay attention to what the Shakti is telling me to do with that individual, just as much as that student needs to pay attention to what is being given for them to do through me. So it's very, 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 very important that you practice your surrender. And that you practice your energetic hygiene. And by energetic hygiene, I'm talking about clearing yourself. And so, something like this. You'd say to yourself, I own my space. If there is anything that is not of me in my space, it leaves now. And you make that work. You make that a fact. And it does work. You'd be surprised at what you could see leaving a person's body. Really, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. So you practice that energetic hygiene. You take that shower. Oh, taking a shower actually is also very, very helpful that way as well. And if you're taking a shower and you say that little saying that I just gave to you at the time that you're taking the shower, that's also very helpful. Okay. So if you have any questions, area code 347-934-0026, and I'm going to bring Rosemary back on, and I believe she has some announcements. Miss Rosemary, do you have announcements?
Yes, we are in Minnesota preparing for your visit and also having another seminar here, November 14th and 15th, Saturday and Sunday, and you will be here giving talks around the cities the week before that. And also the expo, I have it here. Yes, right in front of me. There is an expo that you will be participating in and speaking, and that is the Saturday and Sunday before that, November 7th and 8th at the Earl Brown Heritage Center. One of the biggest and most popular ones, in a good sense, here in Minnesota. And you're speaking at 3 o'clock on Saturday. There's also several of us will be down in Mankato, which is about maybe an hour and a half south of us, at a conference there on, not this weekend, the next one. This is 10th and 11th, so it will be that expo, I'm sorry, is 24, 25 of this month. And
okay.
my information...
How do they contact you, my dear?
Yes, I'm coming to that. I am at rosemaryg@usinternet.com. And 2 phone numbers. You can pick the one you like, 651-452-3161 or 651-329-9615. And I just want to share from the previous time, Chrism, when you were on that radio program, between that one and 5 o'clock, I had a phone call from a gentleman here in the cities asking about the seminar, and it was a delightful conversation, and one of those just touches your heart, and that you just desire for them, that it works for them to be there. So that's this afternoon.
Thank you, Rosemary, and that's good news and blessings to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And blessings to you, Rosemary, blessings to you for making this happen there in the beautiful heartland of the United States, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. Beautiful place, beautiful people. They got the best skyline, I swear. It looks just like out of the Wizard of Oz. Seriously, folks. You get a few miles away and you turn around and you look at Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it's like the Emerald City. On the plains, it's just like this huge thing that comes right out of the plains. It's very cool. And Rosemary's house is an octagonal house made all out of pine wood, as far as I know. And she's got a fireman's staircase that goes up that she walks every day. From her experiences as a nun, she doesn't really need a desk. She just needs a nice, clean floor. Am I right, Rosemary?
Yeah, well, all of it. It's beautiful. I mean, it's my husband who's gone, but it's his work. And
his love is there still.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I would encourage everybody who's listening to this to get a hold of Rosemary. Even if you can't come, just get a hold of her and talk to her about her practice and about how she approaches her Kundalini, how her Kundalini has approached her. And what level of surrender have you given, Rosemary?
It goes deeper and deeper. And when you're...
And how does that feel? How does that look?
It feels at home. It feels comfortable. It feels unknown. It feels available to be used. And and it feels different than I've ever felt in my life. It's just a different. It's been where I've been journeying. It's been my search.
And how has society benefited from your Kundalini awakening connection?
Well, I think you're asking some specific questions, things that your guidance have given me some directions to be connected with the poor and the homeless, and some things I did, and that's present for me often, and I look to ways, even in the future, to be of service there.
Like giving them food, delivering food, and giving you home as a shelter. I remember you drove all over the city looking for a person that you thought was going to be sleeping out in the freezing cold of Minneapolis, about making sleeping bags for the homeless, buying shoes for the homeless. I mean, hello, society has really, really benefited from your connection with Kundalini awakening.
Well, thank you. But you know what comes to mind is a simple little example that I told you today that happened yesterday. But it was just an experience of some concern, and I could feel it, and it wasn't moving fast enough like I wanted it to. And I followed just an inner guidance of stop here at that store, and I just thought it was a fleeting thought. But I turned my car around, and I went, and the gift was standing behind this lovely couple who were very quiet. They were probably late 70s, 80s, a gentleness and presence that I was aware of behind them, and that's why I was guided there, was that spiritual gift that I needed at the moment. And what the benefit is, not just me, but I was able to express that to them and say that. And I just talked to somebody about something before one of that expo we were part of before, and we had something to work out. And he said, every time I talk to you, it's always encouraging. Now, I mean, that's 8 or 9 months ago. I mean, that between these conversations. I'm not aware of that, but I'm grateful to hear it when it is, because that's my intention.
Well, I am also grateful to hear these things that you do and that you're recognizing and that you're noticing in your society, in that society of the Great Plains of the United States. And thank you very much, my dear. I'm going to put you in the Shiva Blue. And once again, that's rosemaryg@usinternet.com. And give your phone number one more time, would you please, Rosemary?
514523161.
One more time.
And the other one is 651-329-9615.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. See you soon.
All right. Be happy to go to the beautiful Midwest of Minnesota. And so now I'm going to turn the page to Her Holiness in the Emerald Isle. Yes, the Emerald Isle. Speaking of the Emerald City, this would be the Emerald City of Cork, I believe, or thereabouts.
Yes.
Cork.
Yes, Chrism. Cork.
Ken, do you have any questions that you've collected from our various communities?
I do. I don't actually have any questions today from my inbox, so they are all from the group's Chrism. So
okay.
Here's one. Can you hear me okay?
What?
I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm picking. Okay. Okay then. Does it matter for Kundalini if you're lying down in a pose or upright while meditating? Does it matter concerning awakening and rising? Does gravity have an influence?
Well, I mean, gravity may have an influence, but no, it does not matter. It does not matter whether you're lying down or whether you're sitting up. I would meditate both ways. As some of you know, I would meditate in an aluminum shed. And, aluminum's not the most healthy metal to surround yourself with. Take I'm sorry. Atlanta Seeker comes out. She says, I think the Wizard of Oz story may be a metaphor for Kundalini awakening. Yes, yes, indeed, my dear. Just the idea of the tornado sucking the house up into the air. I think right there, that would be us being sucked up into the heavenly fields. Well, so I think Atlanta Seeker, we may do a show on that. That is just too good. I love Frank L. Baum and his stories. And so, okay. So back to it. I surrounded myself with an aluminum garden shed, surrounding also with about 15 black widow spiders, and meditated there every day for a year. Okay, every day for a year. And I was in the upright position. But when I would go to bed, as I have other people do, well, I had a practice that I would do standing up. And so the standing up practice consisted of the safety protocols, the 5 Tibetans, and I would put an emotional quality or forgiveness upon. I would sandwich different protocols on top of the 5 Tibetans, because the 5 Tibetans being energetically generative, I wanted that power that was being used by those 5 pumps, which are the 5 Tibetans. They're 5 pumps. And I wanted that to really be energized. And so, for instance, I would put it, I forgive, Joe Jones for stealing my wallet, and I forgive Joe Jones for that. And that would be what I'm saying as I'm doing the first Tibetan, spinning to the right 21 times. I would be saying, I forgive Joe Jones for stealing the wallet, and I forgive myself for being angry at him for stealing my wallet. Okay, and then the next one, I forgive Jenny Latoya for, whatever Jenny Latoya may have done, and I forgive myself for having a negative reaction, so on and so forth. And I would do that, and I would do that in the daytime, and and as well as going out and being like Rosemary, being helpful service to people. I'd volunteer at medical clinics and give whatever I could give, at those types of things. And this was before I was teaching Kundalini so much and basically spending all my time in front of a computer screen. I was doing these things, and then when I got home at night, and I went into the trailer. I was living in a trailer, a little camp trailer. And I would lay down in bed, and I would start doing the physical or the lay down practice. And the lay down practice consisted of the legs slightly spread, shoulder length or more apart, the hands down by the side in the mudra of the Gyan mudra, and I'd begin to chakra breathe, and I would begin to say my prayers of gratitude, my prayers of expressed love for the divine. I would begin to really think about my day and who I needed to forgive again. I would look at my tolerance levels. I would look at the gifts of the safeties that I didn't even really know of at the time. I was just doing these things. And so you can do a practice that is a sitting up upright practice, and you can do a practice that is laying down. When my primary spinal sweep came at the age of 30, I was in a laying down position. I was supine on the mattress, and I was jerked up into a spinal arch on my knees, arching backwards and basically convulsing backwards as I merged into the divine consciousness. So both ways is just fine for the Kundalini. Over.
Okay, thank you, chrism. Next question. I have an incredible headache since Thursday night. Today it's gotten much worse. I did some meditating on my chakras today, and I ended up feeling sick and headache increased. Now I have major trembling and vibrating in the right side of my body. Am I doing something wrong, or is this just energy increase?
Oh gosh, did I respond to that person?
Oh yikes! I'm not sure.
Well, I think headaches have a very there are various things with headaches. You can be one of the ways that you're getting attacked by an entity is through headaches. You can go into a place like when I take people to Sedona. They have these New Age places down there, and they're just so loaded with entities. Oh my God! And when I was traveling in the East Coast, when Amelia, you remember we were doing the New York seminar, and we went down to New Jersey, and Jake and Eleonora took us to that little city, and we remember going into some of those shops and just get a severe headache.
Yes.
And you're just like going, oh my God, and it just drives you out of the store, and it stops. It stops as soon as you leave the store. Well, the same thing down in Sedona. You have these crystal shops where all these mediums are sitting around, and they're like, well, it looks like you need to come back here 7 or 8 more times because I have a car payment that I need to make, and of course, I'm going to give you something. But headaches can be an indication that that there's an action of violation occurring to you, of a spiritual nature, a violation of a spiritual nature. They will try to get into your fontanelle or into the transpersonal channels that line the edge of the fontanelle on the right and left side. And also, if you're doing a lot of devotion, if you're doing a lot of meditation, I had a student recently doing, very, very much devotion and a lot of meditation, and they were getting the hot knives. It's like a hot knife being buried into the top of your skull. And that's often, not always, but often that's an indication for you to just back off of the energetic generation practices at the time. Let your body process some of the energy that you've already developed through that very, very hard meditation and devotion. And once she did this, well, then the headache went away and she could go back to the practice that she was doing. And so headaches have a multitude of causation and reasoning behind them. It's not all one thing. And sometimes, you're drinking too much caffeine, or you decided to start paying attention to the safeties, and you're pulling away from caffeine, and you're doing it cold turkey. And that can also give a person headaches. And if you're pulling away from an SSRI, like a pharmaceutical drug that the medical industry hand out like candy, and if you're pulling away from that and you're not following the physician's advice, which I advise everybody to do, follow the MD's advice and titrate down. That means take it a little bit of a time. Don't just go cold turkey and try to do the whole thing all at once. Have some patience. If you've been, and of course, we have the obvious things like a hangover if you're drinking alcohol. And we have some other obvious things such as if you're watching too much television, that can give you a headache as well. If you're studying too hard or you're reading too long and the print is too small. If you need glasses and you don't have glasses, that can also bring you a headache. And so there are many, many vectors of a potential headache opportunity for a person to have. And so it's important for people to understand that and to take that in consideration. With the Kundalini, though, it can be of an energetic generative approach or an entity attack or whatever else I put there for her to explore. And I think that for her, I think it was kind of an energetic generative thing for her. So we'll just go with that. Over.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I believe I unintentionally activated Kundalini in July from being attuned to Reiki. Does that sound right?
No, that does not sound right. I remember that one, my dear. Reiki is not a strong pattern or practice for activation. But what it does do is because you've been, attuned to Reiki, this or Reiki, vanilla Reiki, chocolate Reiki, McDonald had a farm Reiki, any of the various Reikis. Even though the Reiki itself may be simply a commercial ploy to have you spend money online, or a very, very sincere opportunity to give grace to other people, it's not so much of an activator as much as it is a permission to be open to inner energies. The permission itself can cause an activation of the Kundalini to occur if that person is destined to have it. And I think that person would have been destined to have that if she received a Reiki attunement and then developed Kundalini symptomology after that. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is it recommended to focus our awareness on the belly or the second chakra to move the energy away from the head? It will be, but maybe not if it's a very strong energy sensation.
Well, that's kind of a weird question.
Thank you.
It looks
they're
like
asking for a friend.
For a friend, yeah, right.
They're talking about grounding, I think, chrism. No, this person doesn't. I remember now, actually, this person has Kundalini themselves and so has their friend, but this person enjoys the energy in the head, but their friend is having a difficulty with it. So she was wondering, is it a good idea to move the energy downwards, away from the head?
It's a silly thing to think that you get to control how the energy is going. And if you have done that, if you have, gone into this ideology that, well, since the Kundalini is in my spine and therefore that spine belongs to me, therefore that Kundalini belongs to me too, and I can do whatever I want with it. I can raise it up, I can put it down, I can control this energy any way I want. Well, that is all from the ego. That is all from the ego. And this person who ostensibly has the Kundalini is also speaking from the ego when they say, oh, should we focus on the first chakra or the second chakra or whatever in order to move the energy down? Why don't you just ask the Kundalini to move it as she sees fit? That's my question to her. Why not just take the control out of your ideology and let the Kundalini do what it wants to do, even if it is a bit uncomfortable? The other thing that you can do for a headache is you can hydrate yourself. If you're dehydrated, you can get a headache just from that. That's what alcohol does to you. That's what gives you the hangover. Dehydrates you. And so this person, they need to first of all, they need to look at their level of surrender to the Kundalini. And oh my gosh, the complacency of my friend is being challenged, and therefore, what can I do to bring complacency back into the equation of my friend? And I would suggest that you begin to surrender to the Kundalini for yourself, and to counsel your friend to surrender to her Kundalini as well. And stop trying to move the energy to the seventh or to the second or anywhere else in the body, and just let it flow the way it needs to flow. That's my answer, my dear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the whole thing has moved. 2 seconds, chrism.
Okay.
Okay. I had 2 episodes of cold spinal waves going downward from lower neck to lower back last month. Could you please tell me why most of the people have upward waves and only some downward ones? Thank you.
And I responded to that person. I said, upward to the sun, sacred male, and downward to the soil, sacred female. This is what you need for life to live. And you will get a downward flow. Often it's called apana, A-P-A-N-A, in the Sanskrit word. You'll get an aponic response where the very, very cold energy is flowing down. Often it'll flow down the front channels, and the hot energy will flow up the spine, out the top of the head, come on over the forehead, and flow down the front channels that way, and form like a microcosm or a macrocosmic circuit around the outer edges of the epidermis or the skin. And so, this can happen for people too. It doesn't happen all the time. I didn't have that happen. My Kundalini came up. My Kundalini was really strange, and it came up, and it jutted out of my third eye and out of my fontanelle at the same time. Of course, that was a sweep, and so I don't think this person is talking about a sweep. So no, I think they're just experiencing the male and the female at the same time, and it can go that way. Certainly in a macrocosmic orbit type of activation sequence, you can have the hot coming up the back, and you have the cold coming down the front. Over.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you.
The spinal sweep, is it an indication or the indication that the person will be enlightened, or does it indicate any other thing also?
Read it again.
The spinal sweep, is it the indication that the person will be enlightened, or does it indicate any other thing also?
Well, the spinal sweep, I mean, now there are different types of spinal sweeps. Some people, they get a spinal sweep and it feels really good and they go into bliss, and that's what they want ever more. They just want to repeat that ecstatic bliss. It feels so good. And there's another kind of spinal sweep that gives you union with divine, and you begin to understand that you are divine. Everybody's divine. Everything is divine. Every molecule on this world has a divine signature upon it. And it's only the 5 sense limited individual that has agreed to that 5 sense limited life that allows people to think that it's anything else. We are divine. We are actual divine particles coalesced together in order to form bodies, and the different elements and the different ingredients that make this world and make our life here on this world. And we're here to learn, and we're here to evolve, and we're here to evolve towards divinity once again. And so spinal sweeps of that nature are fairly intense, and they change a person's life in a very real. This is what happened to me. And then the other type of spinal sweep will change your life as well, but you begin to search very, very, very strongly for more of that ecstasy and that more of that bliss, and it is that search that will lead you into stronger levels of enlightenment. But you'll have to figure out along the path that you're going to need to surrender that egoic desire for the pleasure principle. You'll need to surrender that idea that, oh, this is all about just going after bliss and joy and happiness and ecstasy. Whereas with the other kind of spinal sweep, you're there already. You have entered into areas of enlightenment, and you've taken the first steps as that realization in a very factual, in a very real way, that you are of a divine component and that you are already walking in the divine fields, the heavenly fields. You just don't know it. And typically with that spinal sweep, the divine merge spinal sweep, you will get direct proof of that for yourself as well. You will become every grain of sand, every rock, every leaf, every molecule of matter that exists in this world and around it. And from that knowledge, from that understanding, you begin to form your new life of what it is, what enlightenment truly is. Over. Hello? Did I miss you?
Next question. No, next question. I always feel Kundalini energy is much stronger at the time of the new moon. Why is this?
Well, it's God, I answered this one too.
You've answered most of these possibly, chrism, because but people who are listening might not necessarily have read them.
Yeah. I just want my answers to be consistent, because there's always more than one answer to a Kundalini question. There's a compression model of a lot of different ones. So, well, I guess if people can hold that in mind, I just trying to remember here. It didn't really have a lot to do with the moon. The moon, of course, has the gravitational pull, and it's hooked into a person's, the female menstrual cycle and things like that. Ah, yes. Well, there's something that is coming to me right now. It's out with the old and in with the new. You should hear Tika, our wolf, howling now. She's starting to howl because she wants a walk. Can you hear that?
I just heard one howl, and I wondered, was it her? Wow.
I'm living in the Arctic now, let me tell you what. But she's such a sweet girl. Such a sweet. She's for people that don't know, we have a new rescue here. Her name is Tika, Tika, and she is a wolf hybrid dog. So she's a dog and a wolf at the same time, and they don't bark as much as they howl, and she's howling as if she's standing in the forest, waiting. Poor thing. I was just like, oh my God, your heart just goes out to her. And I'll be walking her around the lake.
Oh wow!
Today.
I'm looking forward to meeting her, chrism.
Oh, you're gonna.
Yeah.
She will just love. She loves
yet.
Kundalini people. Oh, she's great. Brilliant ice blue eyes. I mean, she's a Kundalini animal all the way. I don't know how we get so lucky. It's just blessings to the Shakti for bringing her into our life. Out with the. Oh wow! No, that was an answer to a question about PMS, premenstrual pain, premenstrual syndrome, and that was, of course, the out with the old and in with the new, the pain of letting go the old and the pleasure of bringing in the new is what can also cause an interference with the moon issue, though. I know that you've got the lunar and you've got the solar. You got the sacred feminine with the lunar. You've got the sacred male with the solar. With the moon, the sacred feminine is accentuated. And with the full moon, the full force of the sacred feminine is accentuated as reflected by the sacred male upon her. So the light that you get from a full moon is literally the moon reflecting the light of the sun upon the earth. And so that reflection on that full moon is as a way of tantric blending that the multiverse is giving us, and this is what divinity has set up for us, is that we get to see the reflection of light. So the light of the male enters into the firmament of the female and is blended there and captured by her. She holds that light particle, and that in turn is reflected upon the earth by the full moon as the sacred union that we would accomplish within a tantric Mayathuna type of context. Mayathuna is when the male is seated in an upright, easy pose, and the female is seated upon his Shiva lingam, and she dances upon the Shiva lingam in that way. And this would be what the light is doing to the sacred feminine moon as it reflects itself on us. And of course, people with the awakened Kundalini are going to respond to that. Over.
Okay, thank you very much.
TMI, just go ahead and say it. TMI.
No. You know what is great is that when you answer the question on the radio, you'll always expand to what, because, the stream of consciousness and that. And so that's great. That's wonderful. That's certainly not what you wrote on the group. So thank you. Okay.
That's true enough. I find lately more and more tantric things are coming into the dialogue, both in the written form and certainly here. I'm just, I always push myself away from this. Like, don't talk about tantra. Don't talk about tantra. You're going to offend somebody's ears. And I look at my reputation online and I go, how could it get any worse? So I'm just going to talk about the tantra. So there it is.
Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so next question. I have been seeing white and blue orbs since my mother died 12 years ago. I assumed that they were, I assumed then that they were my mother letting me know she was there. Since then, they have grown in numbers. I assume they are only energies, but I don't really know their purpose. So can you speak on that and why they are there?
What we want to do is we want to differentiate little brilliant points of light that people often will confuse as an orb and an actual orb. An orb is almost like a bubble of light. Am I right? Do you agree with that, Amelia?
Yes, I do. It's
almost like a clear bubble of light, and often you'll see a face in it. when I've gone to with Amelia Centaura to Ireland, we go to where's the what's the name of that one castle? It's like a loaf. What's it called? A loaf of bread or loaf of. It's where that Dominican thing was down there. That ruin that we did a few videos.
The Rock of Cashel.
The Rock of Cashel, right? I don't know where I get loaf, but anyway.
Yeah. The Dominican.
I should have got cashew. I should have got the rock of cashew, right?
There's a mountain called the Sugar Loaf, and I'm thinking we were never there.
Oh, it's called what?
Anyway, the Rock of the Sugar. No, the Sugar Loaf.
Oh, Sugar Loaf. Sorry.
Okay.
I swear, you said the other one. Okay, all right.
The Rock of Cashel, and there's a Dominican place below that. You're right, yeah.
Right. And so you go to this Rock of Cashel place, which is one of the areas where the kings of
Munster.
Thank you.
Munster.
And we're not talking about the Munsters on the television show. We're not talking about them. Okay, and neither are we talking about Munster sandwich bread or meat or whatever. It's not that either. It's they actually had their name were the Kings of Munster, and they were the kings of. They were a huge following of populations in Ireland at that time. They were the kings of the place. They were like the royal family of Britain is right now. That's what the kings of Munster were to Ireland in about the 13th century or the 10th century, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 10th-ish.
Yeah, and so we're standing up there on this Rock of Cashel, and I take a few pictures, and wow, I look at the pictures after I've taken them, and there are orbs all over the place, and they've got faces in them. And then I go to France, and you go to Chartres, the Chartres Cathedral, and if you're American, you'd say it looks like Charters because it's spelled Chartres, and because we're Americans, we say, oh, that says Charters, but it's really actually Chartres or Chartres. And if you take a few pictures in Chartres, you're going to see orbs all over the place as well. Orbs on the floor, orbs in the middle of the giant. What do they call that, Amelia? The 60-foot.
Yes, the labyrinth. The
60-foot wide labyrinth that they have there. Orbs floating all over the place. You'll see faces in those as well. And orbs are consciousness. They are a form of discarnate consciousness that can be viewed through a digital flash. So the camera emits a digital flash and it lights them up for whatever reason, and you're able to discern orbs on your film. And I've seen orbs following me in Redwood Forest, in Brazil, at a place called Alto Paradiso, big orbs, following us. And we're going up to the 14th parallel up there, and we're doing all of these very, very, very esoteric things there at the 14th parallel. 14th parallel is the parallel that goes through Machu Picchu, goes through the pyramids of Giza, goes through Brazil, goes through Alto Paradiso. And so it's a very, very, very sacred parallel on the world. And it goes through all, and the ancient people knew this somehow. They knew that the 14th parallel was the big spiritual vein of the energetic anatomy of the earth. And so, of course, we go over to the 14th parallel, and we're doing a lot of Kundalini practices and group practices of the Kundalini nature. And of course, there, you'll see the orbs going around you. The difference between, say, an orb and a point of light, like a sun, like a miniature sun, is that the point of light is pure incandescence. It is not translucent at all. It is bright, and it floats of its own conscious desire. It floats in, it floats out. It stays in your energetic anatomy, and it floats right across your visual field. Where typically you won't see orbs which are a different kind of consciousness, like a discarnate consciousness, you won't see them with the naked eye. Typically. Some people can, I think, but you won't typically see them with the naked eye. You'll see them with a camera flash. But with the Kundalini suns, you will see that with the naked eye. And you can blink, and they're still there. Okay. Orbs are often ancestors. Orbs are often guides. Orbs are often some sort of a discarnate intelligence that is interested in you and following you around for whatever reason. Maybe they're attracted to your energetic signature of your Kundalini awakened. Maybe they're an ancestor, as I mentioned, or a deceased family member, as I mentioned. Yeah, there's the difference.
Okay. I see orbs down in Kerry, in the woods and
that's right. That's right. Around that bog, right?
Yeah.
You've got that bog, the holy bog, or bogginess.
Anyway, I shall ask the next question. If two people with awakened Kundalini have children, do you think the children are born with awakened Kundalini?
I've seen it happen. I know you, Amelia, you have kids that are Kundalini, and you have it, and your husband's getting it, and so I know that I've seen it happen in other people as well. So yeah, there's a possibility. I certainly wouldn't guarantee it, but there is a strong possibility that a person, if even one spouse is activated, the male or the female, the children have a very strong possibility for being activated with Kundalini later on in life. Yes. Over.
Okay, thank you. And this is true. Okay, so a person suffers due to his karmic account. If a healer tries to heal, hope the healer does not get debited. Sorry.
Ask the question again. Hello? Oh, she's gone. She got bounced off. Oh, my God. Well, I think the question she was asking was this. If you give a healing to a person, do you have to take on their karmic residue? And some people, that would be the case, depending on their intention. Okay, so it looks like I have a caller here. I wonder if I should just click on that.
It's me, I think.
Yeah, hi, me.
Is this me?
Yeah, I think it's me.
That's a strange number. I got bumped off. That's a strange number, isn't it? Unusual for me. Okay.
So
did you get that question?
Takes on the karma of the person they're healing, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It depends on the intention of the healer. If the healer's doing it for self-grandiosity, if the healer's doing it or if the healer's doing it as being a conduit of divinity, that is what will really, really, really make the difference. Typically, if you're a conduit of the divine, it is not you that is doing it. It is the divine that is doing it through you. If you are doing it as I am the great chrism the healer, and thou shalt have life because I will it so, well, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem with that, because that's kind of manipulating that person's karma for your own gain.
Are you having a drink?
No.
Okay. Those over cues are really good.
Okay.
Okay, so is that it?
Yeah. It depends on the dynamic of what the healer's about. If they're truthfully there as a representation of divinity in the flesh, then the karmic burden will not be dispensed. If they are there for other reasons other than that, then the karmic burden can be dispensed, depending once again on both individuals' karmas. Done.
Okay. Question: how does one conquer the constant feeling of loneliness?
by giving service to other people, by volunteering, by helping other people, by doing what Rosemary Goliath does. Rosemary Goliath in Minnesota, who we just spoke with a little while ago. You do the things that Rosemary does, and that is how you eliminate loneliness out of your scenario. But you got to understand that nobody's going to understand that you have Kundalini. Nobody's going to know. Nobody has reference points for it. And so, and then if you start telling them, they either want to just send you into the psych ward, or they just want you to shut up because you're scaring them. And so you don't want to go around telling everybody, oh, hey, Amelia, did you know, I have the Kundalini, hey. And you're going to be going, are you getting a drink? Are you having another drink? Have another pint. And so you can't really talk to people that way.
That's just that you mentioned the pint.
You said, are you getting a drink?
You got it in there.
So you can't tell people about this so much because it does frighten them, and so that in and of itself will cause levels of loneliness to occur. Okay, that in and of itself. But it might spur you on to do things like Rosemary does, like Eileen does. If you go to any of the groups, Eileen is constantly, every day, she puts out different teachings of a Kundalini nature. She puts out these teachings, and she's really, she goes far beyond the role of an archivist, and she really begins to remind people what her Kundalini is telling them that it wants her to remind them of. Sometimes it'll be about fear. Sometimes it'll be about joy. Sometimes it'll be about, whatever the education that Eileen's Kundalini wants her to put out. Well, she'll put out those teachings on that group. And so that kind of help also alleviates the loneliness. Going out and meeting people face-to-face, though. Face-to-face, one-on-one helpfulness. You help that homeless person. You take them out. I've done this. I said, if I had an extra $20 that people donated to me for doing this work, well, I'll take a homeless person out to eat. Granted, I won't take them to the most fancy restaurant, but I'll take them to the restaurant that gives them the most value for the meal, value for the dollar. And I take them there and I load them up with as much food as I can. And at least for that night, for that moment, for that time, and if they're not traveling, and I go back, I'm able to do it again. Well, you've made a new friend. If you've reached out in love and care and acceptance and non-judgmentalism and nourishment, you've reached out in ways that will directly affect your Kundalini awakening equation. Done.
Thank you, chrism. And that's the end of the question.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Amelia, is there anything that you would like to say?
What time is it? Do we have much time? No, we have
5 minutes. Go ahead. You can have it all, my dear.
Well,
Take it all.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know if there's anything I want to say. I suppose I just, the topic of today, I suppose, what I was interested in? When Rosemary mentioned about going to the ashram, and she said how the second time she went back and what began to arise for her, or what she came into awareness for her, was stuff that she wasn't aware of in her ego. And I suppose that's just having a teacher, I mean, I remember you saying to me, often, but I remember you saying to me, that question you asked, what part of your life are you not giving to the Kundalini? What are you withholding? And I would have said, I withhold nothing. I give my life to the Kundalini. And if I did not have a teacher, that would have been it. But my teacher challenged me on that. And so that's one of the ways in which, you're saying, having a teacher makes a difference, because it challenges the ego, and it brings up for me to look at these strong levels that I wasn't aware of, that I would have, been resisting, or So I suppose I wanted to say that. And I suppose the other thing is, sometimes then when that happens, there are levels of anxiety that occur. And I suppose the first defense is always, to criticize the cause of anxiety, which would be my dear teacher. So that would, I would have seen it that way as well at times. And one of the wonderful, wonderful things is that, without a doubt, it's the self-management. It's the way that I look at the fact that the Kundalini has given for me to do this work with you, and has given you to me as my teacher, and that can never, ever, ever be put to the side for me. And really, that's it. The end.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to Alana Seeker, Guest 1447, Mary Jean, Phil Kruba, Vincent, and Cole Kundalini. And I'd like to say thank you to you, Amelia Centaur, and your beautiful, wonderful husband, John, and all of your progeny. And thank you for creating and supporting this program. And I would also like to looks like Rosemary logged out. So you can reach Rosemary at rosemaryg at usinternet.com. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. As I mentioned earlier, I will be talking more and more and more about Tantra, the left-hand path, the path of the sacred feminine. As I mentioned before, I am, and you're welcome, Cole. You're absolutely welcome. There's a never-ending plethora of things that for people to talk about with regards to the Kundalini and to the many different manifestations that the Kundalini will bring. If you are in a strong practice, keep that strong practice happening. If you are in the middle of ego refinements, keep those ego refinements going, and definitely don't shirk the responsibility of your own self, of your own personal responsibility with your Kundalini. Do not shirk that, and do not think that you can give that to anyone else, because you can't. I would like to say thank you for everyone listening right now on their computer, and I'd like to say thank you and hello to the people in the archives that are listening into the future. Blessings to everyone who called in, Rosemary, Eileen, Josephine, and the other people that have called in. And I will talk with you again this time next week. And I'll be ending this program with an Aum. And here we go.